Alright guys, what's up? It's the Ascension of Babylon. What we do here is we talk about the occult, we talk about spiritual self-development, and we talk about the healing process. Getting right into it, there's something that I'm really eager to talk about, and I think a lot of you are going to gain value from this. I used to worship the devil. Yes, the devil that you're most likely thinking about. This force which represents the idea of cosmic evil. I used to do rituals to this force. I used to do different rituals to achieve states of what I would know to be possession. And, I spent a pretty considerable amount of time building a relationship with this force, even though I didn't really fully understand what I was building a relationship with at the time. So when I was in the streets, when I was in, these cycles of incarceration, it only made sense that because of the things that I was doing and the energy that I was embodying, that I worshipped something that was a personification of that. I even viewed myself as being like a demon. I was constantly in conflicts with people. I was committing acts of violence. I was like I considered myself to be a real life demon. Like I woke up in the morning and I wanted to be the reason that people would look both ways when they were crossing the street. That's the type of reputation that I was wanting to build, and it's certainly the reputation that I was building. I was existing in this very negative identity. I was a gang member. I was a very violent individual. I mean, to the point where I was practically a psychopath. And of course, a lot of this was fueled by trauma, and that trauma distorted my understanding of these different occult practices that I was getting into. So this distorted understanding is what led me to worshiping the devil. I believed that Satan was like this evil cosmic force, and because I was a person that felt evil, I was a menace to society, I was causing all kinds of chaos and things of that nature, that's what I resonated with at the time. And I even had plenty of what most people would consider paranormal experiences while incarcerated with this entity. But these experiences actually led me to having a new belief about what Satan actually was. I started to understand as this energy was coming into my life and slowly deconditioning me and changing me, on an internal level, I started to understand that this force was not this cosmic evil or anything like that, but this was a powerful Saturnian energy that had a lot of influence over the evolutionary process and can be both an oppressive force or a liberating force depending on the signal that we are broadcasting on a nervous system level. So if on an unconscious level, we are making all these agreements of how we want to be restricted, even if our ego mind's like, no, we want financial freedom, we want healthy relationships, we want this other thing. If there are parts of us that we're deeply suppressing and we're making this unconscious agreement to oppress ourselves, then Satan becomes an oppressive force. It mirrors our internal state. And I started to realize this, and my relationship with Satan began to change to where I started to experience the much more liberating aspects of this energy, and I started to see Satan for what it truly was, rather than operating from this space to where it's like I feel like I'm evil and I need to externalize that in the form of worshiping something that is evil. So some of you who are watching, you might believe, due to the way that you've been conditioned, that Satan is evil. And if you do, it is what it is, that's okay. But I'm telling you from from first-hand experience, that Satan is not evil. And I actually, once upon a time, wanted to believe that Satan was evil. I wanted to feel okay in all of these very negative behaviors and identities that I was feeding by worshiping something that was evil, just like I felt I was. But what Satan did is over time started unraveling me to such a degree that it's like my inside was pushed out and I started seeing myself for who I truly was. And this gave me a little bit of room and a little bit of separation between me and that belief to know that, okay, this force is not evil. And then over time, as I went deeper and deeper into the gnosis of Satan, I realized the evolutionary role that this being actually plays. And I've had some profound experiences with how this spirit will manifest around me. Not only after I was done doing my jail time and I decided to change my life, but when I was still in a space where I wasn't even ready to change, and I had went back to prison, or at this time it was actually jail, I had went back to jail numerous times. I didn't just change overnight, but it actually started with working with Satan, because once again, that version of myself from way back then believed it needed something evil to connect with. But come to find out, Satan is not something that is evil. Satan is what we make of it, and Satan can be as restricting or as liberating as we make this force out to be. It just depends on the resonance that we're in and the version of ourselves that we're showing up as when we are connecting to Satan. But back to what I was saying about going through certain, what a lot of people would call paranormal experiences with this force. I remember one time I did what I would call I did what I would call a black mass kind of rite, kind of ritual, to where it was, a lot of slander against religion and things of that nature. And, I used to say certain prayers backwards in the form of a chant, and I would do it to summon Satan. And, when I did this specific ritual, I was in a segregation cell. Me and my homeboy, we ended up running up on some dude, and, we got caught afterwards, after we did what we did to the guy. And, what is known as SIU, they came to get us, and they brought us to segregation. So, I'm all alone. I don't have a cellie. I think it was 12 at night when I did this ritual. I'm chanting in the cell. All I have is a little styrofoam cup of water to incorporate into the ritual. And I had this understanding that I could call Satan into the water and drink it. Or sometimes I would use the water as a form of offering. So anyway, I did my chanting and I didn't feel anything right away. And I ended up going to bed. I woke up right around 3 a.m. Think about the significance of 3 a.m. And I felt this immense pressure in the room. And at the time, I couldn't see anything per se, but I knew without a doubt that there was something in the room with me. And it had a very heavy presence. I mean, there was no denying that I woke up to some type of intelligence inside of my cell. Now, there was actually another time, this actually happened, I think, a couple of months before the story I just told you, that I was standing inside of the day room, and I actually had another friend, and this is rare, by the way, inside the joint, but I had another friend that considered himself to be a Satanist, and he had all of these sigils tattooed on him, and he had all these different books and things of that nature, and we did have some pretty cool spiritual experiences together. Here's one of them. So I'm standing inside the day room, and we're waiting for the COs to let us out for chow. That means breakfast, lunch, or dinner. I think it was lunch. And I saw out of nowhere this black smoky energy literally start manifesting all around me. And I was pretty sure I was seeing something that was real, but what absolutely clarified it for me is that person that I told you about, my friend. He saw me, he saw what was floating around me, and he let out this wicked, evil, cartoon character type laugh, as if this was just everyday stuff to him. But he saw what I was experiencing. And to this day, I do believe that the energy of Satan would channel through this individual in different ways in order to communicate with me. So I've had very interesting experiences with Satan, and I went from viewing this force as this cosmic boogeyman, as this force of evil that I needed to align with, because I viewed myself as like this demon in the flesh who just wanted to go around hurting people and stuff like that. I went from that to viewing Satan for what it actually is. This very powerful interdimensional intelligence that's associated with the planet Saturn and can give us limitations and restriction, or technically mirrors back our own limitations in the form of restriction, or can open up the doorway for us to experience absolute liberation. And I didn't change overnight, but working with Satan years down the line actually led me to completely changing my life and being a completely different person. But I did have to go to jail and to eventually prison a couple of more times, or I think it's more accurate to say I had to go to jail a few more times and then eventually prison. And then my last 4-year bid, this is where I decided I'm done. I'm good. I'm done with the gangster shit. I'm done being a Crip. I'm done with the dumb shit, and I'm done living a life of just being vengeful and just basically being a fucking psychopath, But yeah, I wanted to share this story with you guys. I think a lot of you will gain value from it. This is my experience with Satan while being incarcerated, and I'm here to let you know that Satan is not the devil that you think it is. That is all religious programming, and Satan is a very powerful interdimensional force that can absolutely open up the door of true liberation and autonomy for you if that's something that you truly want. Thank you for watching the video, and I will see you soon.